Hello, welcome to video 7 in our series of discussions of transformation. And if you've made it this far into sitting through listening to these videos, congratulations. Thank you for sticking around and for putting up with my rambling as I've tried to sort out how do we go about trying to share this information. So I'm well aware I'm probably not an exciting speaker to sit and listen to. I'm really hoping that there's some benefit that this will be providing. And at this point, I was really kind of wanting to say we would like to get started into talking about the solution. So all of this time, believe it or not, what we've been describing is basically more or less the problem, or what we could call the problem, and that would have to do with if we have things in our life that we don't like. That's what I'm calling the problem. So the thing is how do we do something about the problem? How do we do something about these things that show up in our life that we may not care about? And again, it doesn't matter much what those things are that we are causing trouble. It could be the typical, or it could be the labels like psychology uses of cognitive dissonance, or any of the other labels that they put onto things. It could be something as simple or as common as stress and anxiety, depression. It could be low self-esteem. It could be about self-limiting behavior in some way, self-sabotage, self-defeating behavior. It could be the need to seek approval, to seek love. It can be many different things. And that we probably don't want to spend time on talking right now. But I did want to mention that this idea of that we're coming into being able to talk about the solution, and that is what I'm hoping. That's really what it is that we want to get to. But we needed to at least describe the nature of how the problem works somewhat at this point. Wanted to mention the comment was made to me recently that some of what I was talking about sounded a lot like Freudian material, and also similar to Carl Jung's material. And I just kind of wanted to touch on that just a bit, that yes, some of these things that I'm talking about and have been talking about so far, there may be many other resources that may sound similar. And in fact, getting to the point of doing this material and coming to the point of understanding how these things were working, I went through studying a lot of different resources. So some of these ideas that I've woven together here have common resources, or have come from many other resources that may have had part of one of the pieces to this puzzle. And this has turned out to be a fairly extensive puzzle that's going on that we're dealing with. So it is a little bit complicated. And again, we're at seven half-hour videos into this to just get to the point of having said that we've just briefly touched on the nature of the problem. So there are various types of resources out there that have been aware. There has been some awareness of some of these principles that I've been describing, and they have been described in various different ways, which is what I was going to actually mention, the different labels that have been used to describe some of these conditions I'm talking about, or the nature of these patterns and the programs, or what I'm calling programs. So they've been called many different things As I say, psychology has had a lot of different labels that they have used, which are just different ways of describing what I consider to be fundamentally the same process. But they're also called wounded inner child. It's called, I believe the Carl Jung material refers to the shadow self, and that's a term that has become popular lately to talk about the shadow self and to do shadow work. And we'll get into later on, I can talk about how the shadow work idea compares to this work. It is somewhat similar, but I think the point that I wanted to make is that, and I have had a number of people tell me from time to time that some part of what I was discussing at the time, they said, oh yeah, that sounds like so-and-so, such and such. And I do, yeah, so what I'm talking about does sound similar to some other things. But the difference is that these other resources have described the nature of the problem. But there have been very few, if any, that I'm aware of that have actually offered a solution that is effective, that actually produces effective results to actually eliminate the whole nature of the problem itself. And that is what I am trying to get to the point of explaining this process that I've put together, that, by the way, I call this process Wholistic Transformation. And I will probably, as we put these videos together, we'll probably call the resource or the channels that we put together Holistic Transformation. It's just a word that I came up with to describe this approach that I feel draws on holistic principles, and that we want to address the whole nature of being human and the nature of this problem, because the problem we're talking about is very fundamental in the whole aspect of this, our human experience. So the approach needs to also be an approach that considers the whole. That's why I call it holistic. So, all right, let's move on. So far, we've described that in the beginning, when we come into this world, we're in a process of trying to figure out what's going on. We're in an ongoing process of forming opinions and attitudes about things. We draw conclusions. Those conclusions become belief systems. The belief systems are then recorded by the subconscious and are put into place as like the operating system or the set of guidelines that the operating system uses to then create our experiences during life. If during this early period of time we have experiences that are negative in nature or create a negative response, then this creates something that we've referred to as this situation with the inner child, or what we would call the wounded inner child. And we could say that that wound that gets formed is stuck in the inner consciousness, or we could call that the subconscious, and influences our life later on. And we've compared this to what, as an analogy to something like a computer program that is producing results that are not desirable. So now we're kind of looking at these undesirable programs are producing results that are from our computer system that we don't like, that we don't want. So now we're at a point of, we have this problem. Now what can we do about the problem itself? So now we can get into the point of talking about this. So the good news is that what we're talking about, I like to think of, is a solution. And if we apply these principles that we're working with, that problem will go away. It's just like deleting the program from the computer. So that kind of leads into probably a good place to start, in that if we've got a computer, a problem with the computer, there's a program on the computer that is causing It's producing results that we don't like. What we would want to do is to trace down what program is causing these results. So we need to trace this down to where this is coming from. So in our analogy, we have programs going on in the subconscious that are producing effects in our life. So what we want to do then is to find those programs that are playing in the subconscious that are producing these results. So the first thing we need to do is figure out how do we find these things in the subconscious. So there is another factor involved that I refer to as the firewall. Now this is like a barrier that's between the conscious level of the mind and the subconscious level of the mind that more or less blocks direct access to these programs that we're referring to in the subconscious. So what we can do is we need to bypass the firewall or find a way to get access through the firewall. We could think of it as a gatekeeper in a way. So what I have found is an effective way to do this is by using a trance state, somewhat like hypnosis. But if we create a slightly shifted state of consciousness in a deep trance state or a hypnosis, state of hypnosis, we can bypass or go through the firewall between the conscious part of the mind and the subconscious part of the mind. So what this then does is it gives us a way to access the original cause or the source of this unwanted program or this subconscious program that's producing effects that we don't like. So this is the beginning point that we can start with is a meditation process, or what I refer to as a meditation process that creates a deep trance state. Then we want to find the source of what is affecting the conditions in the present. So we trace this back by using a process that is sometimes called childhood regression. So this is, again, it's a type of hypnosis that allows us to trace back into the memories in childhood when this event occurred. So we're trying to get to the memory of the original events of when one of these programs was first established. And then we do that. We ask the subconscious to help us locate this, because the subconscious is like the file manager, and it manages all the memories, and it knows where these things are. So we trace it back to the memory of when this event happened. And then, so let's say, with the example we gave in the last video of, let's suppose in the example that I gave of the child that was having milk and cookies and the milk gets spilled, and we ended up with a decision that was something like "I'm stupid." So we can look at how is "I'm stupid" showing up in life currently, and then we can connect to the emotions and the thought patterns, the energies that are involved. And if you'll recall, in one of the earlier videos, I talked that our experience of being human involves three main energy types of qualities, types of energies. That there are emotions and there are the mental elements of the thought patterns, and then there's the conclusions we come to, which is the spiritual aspect that I refer to as the belief systems. So we trace this back to the event, the memory of the child who is at this table having their milk and cookies, and the milk gets spilled. And then what we want to do is we want to explore and identify what were these feelings that the child had at the time, because it's the emotions, the emotional energies that are stuck in the energy field. And we acknowledge all of those emotions, And we go through and we identify what are the thought patterns, the interpretations that are formed, or that the child formed at the time. And when we've gone through all of those, then we also want to look at what were the decisions that the child made that become the beliefs that were accepted as what is true. In the case of our example, we came to the conclusion of I'm stupid. And there will most likely also be some other decisions that were made that became beliefs as well. Like it could be I'm bad. So we've got I'm stupid and I'm bad. So we acknowledge all of these, make a list. We acknowledge what all these decisions were that were made. And then we can work with the child a little bit. Now this utilizes some techniques that were involved and are recognized as inner child healing techniques and methods. And we can apply these to basically, there's usually a number of conditions that the child needs for this to resolve this. But part of it is to feel validated, part of it is to let go of the sense of being at fault or being blamed. And we can examine the decisions that were made, that the child made in this experience of I'm stupid and I'm bad, and lead the child to a process that we need to resolve the nature of the conflict that's there. And in this case, it might be that, I'm bad or I'm stupid, or it could be just the interpretation of whatever it was that somebody said to them or other conditions that were involved in the circumstances. And we can resolve this so that the child is no longer stuck on this conflict that's there. When we resolve that conflict, then it makes it easier for us to encourage the child to let go of these things. But we can then come to also look at, well, are these conclusions, these beliefs that we have chosen, are these really true or not? And this also may appear to be similar to some other materials and methodologies that are out there, but there are significant differences in how we're using it. And if we lead this conversation well, then it's pretty easy to come to the conclusion that, well, no, these things are not really true. And then we can decide, well, do we really need to have these conclusions, these decisions that we made, these beliefs that we chose and established? And then by this point, if we've resolved what we need to resolve, and we've supported the child and provided some of the care that the child needs, the child can then make the decision that, well, no, I don't need these. And the child can then choose to let these things go. Now this, of course, is in an imagery that we're occurring through this deep trance state, as part of this deep meditation. Then at this point, we can make the choice to let all of these things go. And as we do, all of those energies release. We can do then what I call some energy clearing work, which is another aspect of this that we haven't talked about too much. But all of the factors that are involved in the emotional part, the mental part, and the spiritual part, these all have energies about them that have been part of this structure that I call it, that's been stuck in the energy field. So we want to also address the energies, to release these energies. So we can do some energy work to release these energies, and that's part of the format itself. Now once we've done this, we can clear those energies, and all of this will be basically cleared. And so after all of that discussion that we've been through all of this time, or that we've been discussing in all these videos that seems so complicated, at the moment it seems a very simple process, and it's not difficult. but it just needs to be addressed in the right way with the right combination of the principles that we're applying. But when we've gone through this process and we make the choice to let it go and we clear the energies, it goes away. It disappears. It's like we delete that program from the operating system, from the computer, from the subconscious. It just disappears. And the interesting thing is this process works with the natural processes of our human system of how we function on a very, very fundamental level. And so we're making changes on a very fundamental level so that it's very natural, it's very subtle. In fact, there is a tendency to basically forget that we had that problem. So the strange thing about this work is when we apply this process that I'm describing or that I've developed here and I'm trying to share with you, that when we apply this process, the problem that we had, it disappears. And there tends to be a sense of like that it was never there. So that, my friends, is the solution. That is why we are here and what we're here to talk about. And strangely enough, we went through all of that in about 20 minutes. So it does take a little longer than that to actually go through the process itself. And this process that I'm presenting or that I'm describing, I have been working with for many years and have refined it into a process. I call it a guided meditation process. And the purpose of these videos is to introduce this process and to share it and to invite you to try this process, to use this process. And so part of what we will be doing as we're putting these videos on, we'll probably put it on a YouTube channel and invite people to contact me if you would like to arrange a time to do the session, to do this work. It's not a instant magic wand that clears all problems all up at one time. It does take a little bit of effort to apply, and there can be a number of different subconscious structures that are there that need to be addressed, so that it may take several, but usually after a few sessions people find substantial results in their life. I've seen dramatic changes in people's lives with this work. I've had dramatic change in life from applying the principles of this work. One of the things I was thinking we might do is in one of these videos I might try to lead you through a short, sort of a brief version of a clearing of some of these, of something, like a short meditation, and can lead you through that we can address something that you can do a quick clearing of. I've tried to develop a few tools that can be used to do some of these things. Wow. So I hope it's been worthwhile. We're not really finished with the different topics that can be discussed about this. And as you can tell, I'm a little bit of a loss, is that we've spent all this time building up to this point, and I thought the discussion of the process itself would take a little more. I've still got at least 5 minutes in my 30-minute time slot. I'm a little surprised it went through that quickly. All right. So, any questions? So no, actually, if you have questions, you can contact us through the information on the channel. We'll be creating a YouTube channel. I'll probably also be creating a Facebook page, and we'll have information that we'll be posting along with the videos of how you can contact me if you've got questions or if you would like to arrange to do some of this work. So I'm sorry I wasn't quite prepared for this to wrap up this quick. I do feel like there will be some more things that we'll go in and talk about. I had in mind to talk a little bit about some of the ways that these programs that we've been describing all this time about how they show up in people's lives. A lot of these things are things that we've been just familiar with throughout our life and not really quite stopped and looked at and realized that this was, where this was coming from. I guess that's what we have for today. So thank you for sticking with it and sticking through to this point. And I hope you are finding this of benefit. And also, if you find the materials of benefit, I'm probably going to also include some links that you could make donations that would be very much appreciated. And we will see where we end up with on after this point.